Carrollton County. I also stand before you as a parent, a mentor, and a community person for Carrollton County. We are not here to personally say that we support or deny Dr. Cave, because we're not here for personal reasons. But my question to you is, do you serve on the board for purpose, or do you serve for prestige? We serve on these boards and say, hey, we're here for the better enrichment of our children, but our children are suffering. We went through 4 superintendents within the last 10 years, give or take, if my math is right or wrong. But that poses a problem because we don't have consistency, we don't have commitment. We have a personal vendetta to put someone in office that will do what certain people want them to do. And then instead, we should have someone in office or in that seat that cares about the many children that our community has. Not just a certain group of people, not a certain clique of people, but for everyone. Again, I'm not here to personally stand to say I love Dr. Cave or I hate Dr. Cave, but the record speaks for itself. She has done within a year and a half what many aim to do. Give her an opportunity because she's only been here for a year and a half, just like some of our school board members have only been here quite a few months. We are here to serve, then let's serve everybody. Again, my question to you is, are you here for purpose or are you here for prestige? Purpose is a lifelong commitment. Prestige is just something to say, hey, I'm a part of. Standing here before you, I'm not ashamed, I'm not afraid, and I stand flat-footed, 300 plus pounds, to assure you that we are failing our children every day, every opportunity that we come before and question the employment of Dr. Cave. She is not the best person in the world. She is not the worst person in the world. She has her personal problems just like we all have our personal problems. But at the end of the day, what job are we here for? If she's fulfilling her job, I think she needs to stay. If she is not doing her job, let her go. But I will say, let the record, and as the old people say, may the work that she's done speak for her. Thank you.
I don't want to mix up the first name, but Ms. Green. And you can state your full name. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Davetta Green.
Davetta, thank you.
I was born and raised here in Waltersburg, South Carolina. I wanted to speak today about Cougar Nation. I volunteer from day-to-day basis. The superintendent of the state, Ms. Ellen Weaver, sent a letter to Dr. Cave implementing that she wanted to put in place as well the program that we have, like Cougar Nation. Cougar Nation has been doing very well, very well. The only problem we have right now is we need more volunteers. We need parents to step up. Yeah, I don't have children at the high school. I have grandchildren that are in elementary and middle school, but my children are out of school now. But we need more parents, the community, anyone can volunteer with Cougar Nation. It's no certain amount of hours. You can fix your time. You can do, even if it's 30 minutes, helping them get into the classroom, getting them out the hallways so they won't be tardy and stuff. Keep them out the bathrooms from getting tardy. It's just numerous things you could volunteer to do. But we need more people to step up and help. But in saying that, like I said in the beginning, Dr. Cave is doing her best. None of us are perfect, and none of us, I think, would be able, if we were put in a position where she's at, a lot of us wouldn't be able to handle it or take the pressure. And like previous speakers have said, she has been put in a position behind others. And she's actually taking and picking up and trying to repair what others have damaged. So we as a community, instead of everybody pointing fingers, everyone needs to come together. Like I said, no one's perfect. All of us don't have children in school system, but hey, we need to step together and help in getting this community organized with our children, because all they're doing is killing off themselves, drugs and different things. So we all need to come together and help in getting our children in the back on the right track. And Cougar Nation is a good start. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harron Davis.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I come before you again on this evening to stand with Dr. Cave and the citizens of Colleton County that have supported her from the very beginning up until now. When I came the last time at the last regular school board meeting, I came with some stats and just wanted to be nice and try to remain as calm as possible. But as many of you may state, have stated that you all speak to your constituents. Well, I'm not an elected official in this county, but I'm a citizen of this county. And I have also spoken to a large amount of the constituents in this county. Not just one race or creed or age. I have made my way around this county, different communities of this county. I've been to a few church services and just spoke to some random people. Some people had no clue that the school board was trying to fire Dr. Cave. That I have found hard to believe, because we are on the news every single school board meeting. Are you guys not tired of Colleton County being on the news? I know I am. I remember a time where you very rarely would see Walterboro and Colleton County on the news. People didn't used to know where Walterboro was. But because of ignoramuses and silly people that we have doing silly things in our county, the news is here. No offense to our news media, but they're here. That's not the Walterboro I want to be recognized for. When I'm in the street and I'm in Charleston, I don't want to tell somebody I'm from Walterboro where they're trying to fire the superintendent every school board meeting. I don't want to tell them that I'm from a town where they always have murders, young people killing each other. We just recently had 3 or 4 murders in the past 2 months. We have bigger fish to fry. Either fire her tonight or leave her alone so she can do her job. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. And I'm not the only one that's tired of it. Now, if you want to fire her, let her go, so she can move on with her life, and maybe she can go and apply for a district that would appreciate the good things that she has to bring to their district. Because when Dr. Cave was hired here, as I stated the last time I stood before you, she was hired to make a change. And she can't make changes overnight, but she sure can't do it with her job on the line every single week. She has to not only worry about all the students in this district, the faculty and staff, but she has to worry about whether she's going to have a job the next day. Enough is enough. We're tired of it. Now, you have one employee, and that's Dr. Cave. But guess what? All of you, each and every one of you, y'all work for me and the other 38,461 citizens of this county. And I guarantee you, we're watching you. Every step you make, every move you make. And yes, I know that it was stated a couple of months ago that the people of Colleton County spoke on November the 8th, but they're going to speak again in 2024 and
We have no other public input. I thank each and everyone for their input. We will go into our discipline session. Did you guys want to go down? Or you want to stay up here?
I think go down.
Yeah, I think so.
started. At our last discipline work session, we did have time for public input, but I just think with the crowd tonight, we may not have as much time for that. I do want to make sure, I just want to kind of state this before we get started. The goal tonight on our agenda, you see a couple of items that we have listed there. I think high priority things that we need to discuss. My hope is tonight, before we leave here, that we have concrete action steps that we can implement as soon as possible to start working towards resolving some of these situations. I understand that there will not be an easy fix to a lot of these things. It's not going to be things that we can see improvement in overnight, but I do want to make sure that we are collectively, as a group and as a community, moving forward to fix some of these things. I do real quick just want to read out of two policies that come out of our policy manual. The first one is policy JA. It is student policies, goals, and objectives. And there are all of the goals and the objectives that the board has in the vision for the goals and objectives for the students and the policies that govern them. The middle one here in policy JA says to develop in students a deep sense of personal responsibility for their actions. I know at a meeting we had a couple of months ago, Dr. Cave mentioned, I think Mr. Cannon had sent an email to the students, and Dr. Cave mentioned we really need to get to the points where our students are taking responsibility, right? Where they're being responsible for what they know they're supposed to do and making sure that those things are taken care of. So I really want us to kind of keep that in mind tonight as we discuss this and as we kind of go through this, that part of our job is to develop that sense of responsibility in our students for their actions. The other one is policy JICDA. It's the code of conduct. And it says the board expects students to conduct themselves in an orderly, courteous, dignified, and respectful manner. This requirement refers to actions toward other students, teachers, language, dress, and manners. The board believes self-discipline is an interpersonal goal of public education. So again, tonight, as we're discussing this, I don't want it to seem like we're just trying to discipline people. We want to punish people. I want us to understand that as a whole, our community as a whole, that we want to teach this in our kids to take responsibility for their actions, including their behaviors and the way that they treat other people. Mr. McNeely has given us, and I'm sorry, Ms. Morrow, right? Ms. Morrow and Mr. McNeely have given us some information board, and if you have not misplaced it yet, the way Mr. McNeely gave it to us is actually in order. So first, board, you have this chart that deals with our attendance, our tardies, and absences. If you want to take just a second to look over that. While we're doing that, and Mr. McNeely, I don't know if I direct this to you or if I direct this to Ms. Morrow, can somebody tell me how many, I lost my paper. I think the two terms we use are habitual and chronic in absenteeism. Is that correct? Truant. Habitual truant is any student aged 12 to 17 who fails to comply with the school's intervention plan and accumulates 2 or more. This is after they've already got 5 and been placed or considered as truant. So can anybody tell me, or is this an unfair question, do we know how many in our district right now we have who are considered habitual truants? And it doesn't have to be a exact figure. Do we have that information?
I know that we've got the chronic absenteeism rates, but as far as the habitual,
Can you give me the chronics?
yes, sir. Let me just find that real quick for you.
And principals, while she's looking for that, I am going to come to you and ask for your input on this. Again, we really want to take actionable steps tonight before we leave, or come up with actionable steps. So principals, if you can be thinking how bad the issues are with absenteeism and truancy in your schools, what the major issues are in enforcing those policies, and what we can do to rectify those, I would appreciate it.
Okay. So I was able to find the chronic absenteeism rate. Currently, we're at 33.99%, which is certainly too many. As far as the habitual, I do not have those numbers, but I would go ahead and venture to say that we need to work on that as well.
Would you have a guess or no? No.
have not.
Okay, so just to make sure that we're all in understanding, when you say 33.9%, that is not our 4,900 student body. That is just 12 to 17. So that's just middle school and high school. Is that correct? Or is that not correct?
No, sir, that is the entire
That is the entire.
district, yes.
Okay. Okay, so there's just some confusion on my part on this policy because it says habitual truancy is 12 to 17 and chronic truancy is 12 to 17 as well. But in that number you gave us, that's including the entire student body?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Principals, we are on a time schedule, remember, but I would love to hear from some of you about absenteeism and truancy and what we can do to fix it. Not everybody all at once. We need to get you a mic. Yeah, but you can't hear them.
Thank you.
All right. So if you look at the document comparing last year's attendance, absences and attendance plans compared to this year's, ours has dropped significantly. We still have some students that are of great concern. One of the things that we found is that our babies who have older siblings at the middle or the high school, that a lot of our parents are waiting to drop them off instead, in terms of for them to go, so to be closer to start time for middle and high school. We have implemented, where we have our SRO, our guidance counselor, and myself, who are working with our attendance clerk to support our families. And through our MTSS process, we're tracking our attendance, and we're tracking those chronic students, and we're putting in support, because we found out some of our students just had a phobia of coming to school. Some of our students have underlying medical conditions that the parents didn't realize, hey, I need to provide X, Y, and Z to help with that. And so it's taken a lot of time and a lot of digging and a lot of investment, but it's helping. And we are using attendance through, we are tracking that through our MTSS process. That is one of the things our teachers report out to us about, as well as when we've asked any dojo messages that come to teachers to make sure that they are sharing those with our attendance clerk as well. Because a lot of times they're true medical and they haven't been documented because they're not getting it to the power school clerk to be able to document appropriately.
And Ms. Fancheck, can you give me just a rough estimate how many your student body is at Black Street?
We have 318 students currently.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we just raise our hands if we are elementary school principals here tonight? I know I saw Ms. Behe and Mr. Smalls, Mr. Garino, Ms. Parker. So we've got 4 of our 5, is that right? Okay. All right, anybody from elementary principals? Nobody? Oh,
I really didn't want the mic, but Miss Allen from Cottageville. Hello, everybody. And speaking about attendance in Cottageville, we had a high number of our truancy and kids with attendance plans and attendance issues. A lot of that, sometimes it is on our early release days, especially they will not send their children on an early release day. We've been trying to explain to parents that day is still an instructional day. So most of the time, if it's an early release day, sometimes, I don't know, there's quite a significant number of students who don't attend school on early release days. Then we have issues where parents will send the kids to school, but they will sign them out at 9:30 in the morning. And kids have to be in school a certain length of time for it to count. So they may have been there, but parents signed them out and they don't bring them back for an appointment and other things of that nature. We have tried to decrease our number of attendance, the level of attendance plans, but it doesn't seem to really be working, because we can motivate the kids, but we have to motivate the parents to make sure they can bring the children and to get them to bring them on time and to leave them so that they can have their full educational experience.
and Ms. Allen, just since you're the one that brought that up, do we have any ideas of how to do that, as far as how to engage the parents more and to get them to understand the importance of that?
we've been trying some different things, and some of the things we did was through our PTO meetings. So we've been doing some different theme things in order to get the parents out so they can hear what we have to say. And I must say that the attendance has been picking up, so I feel like it's working. We try to talk to them in the morning in the car ride line. We talk to them even when they're signing them out and trying to get them to make sure, leave them all day. Can you leave them, please? And asking them to make those appointments as late as possible. So we just been trying different little things, but I think the biggest thing is trying to get our voice heard through our PTO meetings, and those theme meetings have been making great results, I think.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. And can you give me an estimate of Cottageville's enrollment?
Last I checked, I think it was 479, but we have had several kids that have come in and come back out.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Are there any other elementary school teachers? If not, I thought I saw Mr. Kitt somewhere. There he is. I'm coming to you, Mr. Kitt. Any other elementary school teachers? I meant principals. I'm sorry. Principals. All right, Mr. Kitt, it's all you.
Well, we're creating an inviting environment for our students. This time last year, we had 276 truant issues. Now it's 96. So we do things as far as PBIS, making kids wanting to come to school. We have a Cougar Shack store as well too. So every Friday we give incentives for attendance as well as positive behavior. Just creating an environment that kids really want to come to. So basically, that's our trick and our secret.
Mr. Kitt, I think I'm fixing to commend you, I believe. If I'm looking at these numbers correctly, I think you have less truant students than every elementary school. Am I looking at that right, Dr. Cave? Is that correct?
Last count, he has 96.
96.
He's got 95 plans done.
And Mr. Kitt, enrollment at the middle school?
1,116.
Thank you very much. That is
Welcome.
quite impressive, quite impressive. All right, Dr. Cannon.
Good evening. Attendance for us at the high school and the challenge with attendance centers around a variety of reasons as to why students are not coming to school, from the size of the school environment and social anxieties, traumatic situations that students have experienced that causes them to be more reclusive in nature and not want to be in a large school environment, as well as for us recently just realizing how the violence of the community impacts whether or not parents feel that sending their students to school is safe for their families. We've had many students who are not coming to school as a result of the recent shootings in the community and murders that we've had in this community, and retaliation potentials that students feel as if they're caught out in the community coming to school, then they're isolated and they become an easy target for retribution purposes as a result of the gang violence that is occurring in our community. Additionally, we do know that students take on jobs and other responsibilities that they feel as if are significant for them due to their home environment needs. And our attendance clerk, and it's not reflective, I don't think, as accurately within our number count as far as the attendance plans that we're implementing, but our assistant principals are consistently being called to participate in attendance plans. But we are down an attendance clerk to enter that data, which I believe, after my conversation with our attendance clerk that we have, that some of that data has been slow to be entered for documentation in PowerSchool, but the plans and the documentations are there. What we are finding when we do have attendance plans in place, that's doing very little to change the behaviors of the students and the families for students to come to school. We notice that a lot of our parents are saying that once they're in high school, I take my hands off and they know better, they know what to do, and many times they're asking us for more assistance and advice. Also, when they get to the high school level, I've noticed more of a challenge for the court systems related to chronic absenteeism and truancy, more reluctance for them to participate in the truancy process after we've shown a burden of proof of what we've done on the school end to try to get students to come to school. And that is a question that I will have for our attendance office here at Central District Office, as well as any others who can share with us what has been the attitude beyond employees of the district with our other governmental agencies who's also charged with us trying to get students who are not coming to come to school. Are we getting the participation from these agencies to really help us in that area? From my recent experience here in our county, it seems to be lacking in that area, that we're getting those other services and other agencies to support us when it comes to student absenteeism.
Mr. Caden, thank you for that. Can you give me enrollment at the high school currently?
We're about 1470.
1470. And Mr. Cannon, and I'm not sure if you can answer this or if one of your assistant principals can answer this. Do we have more of a problem with attendance at a certain grade level, or is it across the board?
I would say a couple of years ago, prior to COVID, it was more or less with upperclassmen. Now it is 9 through 12. It's the gamut that we're seeing these challenges.
Okay, thank you. Board members, please do offer your input at any time in these. Like I said, we need to get to actionable steps that we can take to help with some of these numbers, or either we just put Mr. Kitt in charge of attendance.
Mr. Cannon, thank you for mentioning that you might need another attendance clerk, and I know you were meeting with Dr. Cave with budget. Is that something that is in your plan, that we get the extra attendance clerk?
Yes, ma'am. We have the budget for it. We have the position. Is finding the talent to fill that position is our challenge right now.
Other board members have any observations or any input as far as attendance and tardies? And then principals, I'm going to come back to you and ask you what our solutions are. Any board member? All right, do we have a principal who wants to offer input as far as solutions, or do we just give it to Mr. Kitt and just model everything that he's doing at the middle school?
I second Mr. Kitt. I do think this is a system-wide issue for us, and it's one that impacts the community greatly. I do think it's worth us exploring a community-wide campaign as to bringing back what is the relevancy of school. I think after COVID and so many going for a virtual learning option, then a lot has been lost as far as the true wraparound services, growth potential, and full understanding of what our public school systems are offering to our students that we're not taking full advantage of. And I think we really have to re-expose the community as to why this is so significant. School is so significant. Even at the high school level, the apathy of so many of our students being disconnected from understanding why is a high school diploma relevant in this day and time is shocking, and something that I've been studying. How do we reconnect students to coming to school and the relevancy of that high school diploma, and what does that high school diploma mean as far as access to future opportunities? I truly feel as if we've lost an understanding from our students as to the why behind school and why it's significant.
And Mr. Cannon, just I love the idea of the campaign to reach out into the community. My question would be, and I will say I think it would probably be better at a school level, but would that be more effective at a school level, or would that be more effective coming from a district level as far as that campaign goes?
I believe the campaign must include more than just district level. I believe that a campaign must include county council. It must include the business community. It must include our religious community, faith-based organizations, any and all pockets of this community where even the cashier at the gas station in Cottageville is talking about school and asking students how was school. School is important. From there to Jonesville to Green Pond to all pockets of this community, everyone has to buy into the rallying cry of school, school, school. So definitely it's beyond just a district initiative. Yeah.
The reason I said that, and thank you, Mr. Cannon, the reason I said that, I know Mr. Murdoch is really big as far as the community schools. And I know when I was a kid, those people in that school, the teachers, principal, they knew every kid's parent. So they could, if the kid wasn't there, they could just make a phone call and say, hey, why isn't little Johnny here? So I do agree. I think getting churches and businesses involved is the way to go. So, Mr. Cannon, just from hearing what you said, and this is just my observation, if we do the School's Important campaign on the front end, we still have to close the back door and get the court system to be more engaged on the back end. Is that correct?
Right, all agencies. So the court has a role, Department of Social Services has a role, Department of Juvenile Justice has a role. So all of these agencies, we need to have at the table and develop a strategic plan as to how we will work together to tackle this.
And just out of curiosity, Mr. Cannon or Dr. Cave, do we currently have that? I know we have those relationships, but do we have what we feel like is a beneficial working relationship with each of those agencies, or is there more to be desired there?
We do have working relationships with all of those agencies. We meet with those agencies. We are in contact with those agencies. We can do referrals to those agencies. They do wraparound services for us with our attendance office, with our social workers, with our student services office. Can we meet with the court system? We've done that. Can we have a better working relationship? Yes, we probably can. We can always do better, but our attendance office can comment if you'd like to talk about the services. I don't know whether student services, any additional persons are here, but please comment, Ms. Morrow.
Yes, ma'am. So I do speak with them daily. I speak with representatives from DSS. I speak with we deal with Pillars for Hope, DJJ officers. So I definitely have a great relationship with a lot of the workers in those fields. They're wonderful. They want to genuinely help. I think what they're finding is similar to what we're struggling with. They have a lot of the same struggles. They're trying to deal with buy-in from the families. They're trying to make sure that they're able to help. They're trying to find the proper resources for each family. So I don't know that it's so much that these outside communities that we don't have a good relationship, because we definitely do. I think it's more so that as a community, I think we just need to come together more, and I think we need to find some type of common ground where we can all assist each other with those resources. It kind of seems like we're each doing our own thing, and we're trying to funnel and help our children, and in the process we keep kind of hitting these exact same walls. So I guess my long way of answering that question is yes, we do have a great relationship with these communities. We do speak with them every day. I think it's just they're struggling with a lot of the same things that we are.
I think there was a time in America when we used to do the compensatory law. I mean, we used to enforce that more in terms of students having to be in school, and that they were cited, parents were cited, and they were actually disciplined if their children were not in school. I think we've moved away from that. Our court system has moved away from that. If we could reenact that a little bit more, I think we would do a great service for our children. So maybe bringing the court system together to talk with the court system about that would be an idea that maybe we could talk with some of the judges about what can we do to make sure that we're holding our parents more accountable for making sure that their children are in school.
Yes, ma'am. And I will say, real quick, another issue that I am finding is that what's happening with some of our families is when I am in constant contact and it gets to the point where it does get to a district office level, a lot of our parents are then deciding that they're just, they pull their kids out and homeschool them. And honestly, when they have an attendance issue, they're really not supposed to be able to move to that membership and get approved for that, because they're supposed to show that they're able to attend school regularly and basically get the job done. But for some reason, they're still being accepted into these homeschool associations. And once I get those membership letters, my hands are off, and there's really nothing more that I can do.
Okay. Board members, I'm going to come to you in just a second. Dr. Cave, I do just want to piggyback on what you just said. I know you and I have talked about this. Horry County used to, I don't know if they still do, had a truancy program where once you got put on the plan, if the school missed another day, the cops went and picked up the parent and took the parent to jail. Are there any districts in our state that are currently enacting that plan that you know of?
I'm not aware of any, but I can always check.
Board members, anything to add before we move on to our next topic?
Hey, so I had a flip side thing to that with the whole community campaign. Along with that, I know when students have 100% attendance, we recognize them with an award. So maybe this will take a lot of people to do this, but like maybe the parents come in for a night and we recognize and thank them with like a PTO sponsored dinner or something like that. And then we have some sort of night camp, not all night, just like a couple hours or something like that, where we watch the kids and they go out to the community and go to different restaurants or whatever. And then, hey, if you go to this restaurant, you'll get this percentage off. Or if you go to this restaurant, that percentage comes back to the school. So it's a fundraiser and like a win-win all the way around. But that could be very like PBIS. That's not going to solve it, but it could improve it type thing. So there's that.
Yeah. Anything that we can do is moving forward, because some of these numbers are scary. I don't want us to leave this. I want us to continue to think on this, and if anyone comes up with something, a brilliant idea before we leave tonight. But I'm sorry. Okay, while we're getting the mic to Ms. Fitch, just in the interest of time, we are, after Ms. Fitch's comment, we are going to move on. So principals, disruptions will be next.
I know we're talking about student attendance and truancy, but it's hard to enforce attendance with students when our staff has become a serious attendance problem. We have a lot of staff that do not come to work on a regular basis and take off at the drop of a hat, and I think that it's hard to enforce and spread that to our students when we're not setting the example in the district.
I don't know who, Dr. Cave, can we get that information as well?
We can get that information. I sign on a weekly basis about $45,000 of absences on a weekly basis. We spend on a yearly basis over $888,000 in absenteeism paid to Kelly Services. So do we have a problem? By all means, we do. Yes, but you can get that information.
One of the concerns that I also have that I get from some of the parents are Department of Social Services are holding their hand as far as disciplining their children. And when they are disciplining their children, spanking them, getting them in order, etc., we can't go back to the old days. And that could also interfere with our attendance as well. I've had some parents that called me and they said, well, why don't you guys talk to the Department of Social Services? We need more control in our homes. And if the children knows that parents cannot discipline them in a certain manner, then the children are taking advantage of that. So these are some of the things that we need to take into consideration as well. You know, we can't always, parents, yes, they do need to step up, but then they need to be able to discipline their kids. And with Department of Social Services, if they discipline them in a way, they can end up with a loss and jail, basically. So these are some of the things we need to get together with the parents and try to work some things out.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Okay, we are, just in the interest of time, we're going to move on to disruptions, and I am going to take just a point of liberty here. Principals, I am coming to you in just a moment about classroom and hallway discipline or disruption, but I see Mr. Bradley is with us tonight, and I would love to hear from Mr. Bradley, if we can get him a microphone, about where we are with disruptions on our buses and that whole situation. Mr. Bradley.
I guess we're not in February where it's Love the Bus Month, so. In talking to Mr. McNeely earlier this evening, we have some of the same disruptions that the school's having, obviously. It's just on a school bus where we don't have the capability of helping the driver or other students fast enough. And before I start, the one thing that we have improved on, and I'll say in front of this entire community, is we've had a great reduction with the number of fights on our school buses. So I applaud what the district and Dr. Cave has done with the 45-day suspension for fighting on our school buses. That worked. The tough love worked.
Mr. Bradley, either you or Dr. Cave, can somebody just for the whole of the community explain exactly what that process is?
If you fight, yes, first offense. If you fight on the school bus, you are put off for 45 days, and your parents have to find a way to get you to school. First offense.
When you come back on the second offense, what's the?
You could possibly be put off the school bus because riding the school bus is a privilege.
Absolutely.
It's not a requirement.
And Mr. Bradley, just before I'll let you continue, just for clarification, do we have monitors on our buses or no?
We have monitors on all of our special needs buses, and we do have a few monitors on our regular buses, or some of the buses that have had the most challenges.
But not on every.
Not on every bus, not yet.
Am I in trouble or are you in trouble?
No, I'm in trouble.
Oh, okay.
Let me clear it up. Except for special ed students, we have to. Yes, that's Miss Dr. Batty back there saying. Except for special ed children, we have to provide transportation for special ed children. So I want to make sure of that. Okay. Yes.
Yes, we do have to follow the IEPs.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bradley, continue, please.
But the major disruption, and obviously, that's also not adhering to the bus driver while he or she's trying to operate that school bus in traffic, environment, whatever we're dealing with. It's not like you have a classroom with 25 students in front of you. You have a classroom of 30 to 45 behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a safety concern for me and our drivers. I talked to a 46-year driver this morning, 46 years. Disruption on her school bus is at a minimum, but when she has to talk about that, she talks to the child at least twice, personally. Then she talks to the parent personally, either phone call to them or at the school or at the bus stop, before she ever writes the first referral on that child. And this is an elementary bus driver, of 46 years. What she's seen is the problem starts at home. And that's not, we don't have we have the concerns of it at home where we can't, for the little bit of time that we have that child on the bus, that's not enough time to raise a child. I know it takes a village, but it starts at home. And I can tell you, Ms. Fryer, of 46 years, drives for Bells, and she does an outstanding job. And I wish I had another 50 just like her, okay? But disruptions, major disruptions, refusing to obey, basically disrespect for our bus drivers, okay? And then it goes into profanity on the bus, and also the disrespect, and we've even started down the line now, we've gotten into the part about the tobacco violation, which is not of cigarettes, it is of vaping. Very strong on our middle and high buses, and are the marijuana at the bus stop before they get on the bus, because they reek of that smell, which then the bus drivers are having to smell that. So those are issues on a school bus. They're the same lines of what Mac talks about within the school. But your major disruption is the disrespect, not listening to the bus driver, but our drivers do try to first and second. But the driver told me today that the reteach piece about our PDP problem, we've already done that 2 or 3 times with the driver to that child and to the parent. They looking for something more substantial right after that when that first referral comes across. But our administrators' hands are tied to somewhat too because they have to follow that.
Sure.
But that's what we're looking at.
And Mr. Bradley, I'm so thankful that you said that, because that's kind of, when I looked at our progressive discipline plan, that's kind of where I'm at too. What we have on paper right now will be great when we get everybody back to where they're supposed to be. But for now, with the situations we have that are out of control, I believe we need to shorten those chances and the offenses, like the 45 days for your first time fighting. I think we need to have more severe consequences earlier in the stage instead of continuing with the reteach and the warnings and those things. So I'm glad you said that. I appreciate that.
Because we may have some students that would ride the bus and not be in the car rider line half a mile deep at the schools, which would help our schools.
Sure.
If they felt they were okay
Safe.
on the bus and
Right.
we took care of the issue sooner.
So, Mr. Bradley, I'm going to ask you a question, and my guess is you're not going to want to answer this truthfully, but I'm going to ask you to answer it truthfully. How many of your bus drivers are at the point where I'm not going to continue to drive the bus if things don't change?
Well, I would
Give
say
me a percentage.
I would say at least 30 to 40% of those, because we do have drivers that have never had a written referral because they set the law down day one.
Right.
We had those drivers too, but you still have
the
certain
constant
students.
disrespect and those things.
Those are the top 2 or 3 that are concerns for us.
Okay, so I'm going to yield back to Dr. Cave if she wants this, but my recommendation is going to be, let's figure out, and I don't know if this is a Dr. Cave thing or if this is a Mr. Bradley thing or if it's in conjunction with each other. Let's go ahead and figure out how to let's cut those warnings down, and let's go ahead and make more severe consequences earlier in the process. We can't afford to lose any more bus drivers, right? And we do want our kids to feel safe on the buses. So, Dr. Cave, I don't know if I just put you in a corner or not. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, you didn't put me in a corner, but I think that Mr. McNeely and Mr. Bradley have already had a conversation, if I'm not mistaken, and they're looking at revising the PDP with the committee. There's a committee that works on revising the PDP to make some adjustments to that. Okay, right?
Because we don't feel from the bus situation that if you give a student ISS in-school suspension, really does anything for the school bus.
Doesn't help the bus driver at all, right?
So,
right. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bradley. I'm just curious, we don't have time for a lot of public comments, but I just wanted by a show of hands, do we have any parents in here tonight that your child does not ride the bus right now simply for the not feeling safe? Do we have any of those in here tonight? No? Let me ask this question. How many people in here have kids that are currently riding our public school buses? Okay, so that changes that a little bit. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Bradley, was there anything else from your perspective? Board members, anything as far as the bus disruptions for Mr. Bradley? All right, principals, we are coming to you in class disruptions, and I would ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Bradley. How many of your teachers right now, percentage-wise, are saying, listen, if something doesn't change with the disrespect in the classroom, I'm no longer going to be teaching, and what do we do about that? And just keep in mind, I'm going to suggest the same thing to you, that we cut down on some of those steps in the progressive discipline plan and make severe consequences much earlier in the process. Elementary school, anybody want to go first?
So where would you do it, in class in the hallway now?
Yes, ma'am. No elementary school? Oh, there you go.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Smalls, principal at Hendersonville. I can't put a percentage on teachers to answer your question, but I know they're tired, and I know that they're frustrated. So I can't quantify. If things don't change, then they'll leave, but they're tired.
Mr. Smalls, can you elaborate for us, for all of us, why they're tired and why they're at that point?
So a lot of it is the progressive discipline plan, because just about every infraction within that document, it is a reteach of expectations for the first and second occurrence of an infraction. And a lot of the PDP is rooted in PBIS because punitive consequences don't, this is what the data says, punitive consequences doesn't deter a misbehavior. But on the flip side of that, they need consequences. If you do wrong, you gotta get a consequence. And our students are very savvy too on the progressive discipline plan because they know I can continue to behave a certain way. I can hit my teacher or use profanity toward my teacher, and Mr. Smalls is going to bring me in his office, and he's going to reteach expectations, and he's going to call my mom, and that's just about it. We'll do some referrals to counselors and that kind of thing, but I think their level of frustration is rooted in the progressive discipline plan.
Okay, so Mr. Cannon, if you would just make a note for me. Mr. Kitt is over the attendance issues and Mr. Smalls is over discipline issues. That's where we're going to. Do we have any other elementary school teachers? Thank you very much for that, Mr. Smalls. Any other elementary school teachers that would like to weigh in on that, or any other elementary school teacher who would say, yes, everything he said is completely accurate?
I'll speak on behalf of Blackstreet.
Oh.
We have the little ones, as you all know, pre-K and 5K, and a lot of our behaviors, what we have realized is they're manifesting out of their inability to control their emotions or express their emotions, which is one of the reasons with mindfulness program, with that put in and the strategies that we're using, again, through our MTSS process, identifying our students early on. There's high levels of impulsivity. And that's something that has to be taught, children who just have difficulty. We do see some level of disrespect. It's taught. It's a learned behavior. So we're having to retrain the brain. And our teachers, I will say, we have a lower number of discipline problems at our level, which is to be expected at an early childhood level. But we are also working diligently to find what strategy or what piece is going to work for that specific child to help them be successful. And it takes a lot of effort, and we have to get buy-in from our families at home because we can do everything we're doing at school. And if we're not getting that buy-in from the parent to help support what we're doing, and thankfully we have a lot of parents who are stepping up, and then we have some who are not. But those behaviors, children, they're coming out of our babies. When you think of our 5-year-olds and where they were 2 and 3 years ago, that was when they were really beginning to develop their language skills and reading facial expressions and understanding proximity. And those were things that they were shut away during COVID when we're quarantined and we're isolated and seeing people through masks.
Now they're behind the 8 ball.
Now they're just, it's delayed. Their development is delayed socio-emotionally.
Right.
So, and a lot of them were isolated from peers, so their ability to interact with one another is also stunted.
Thank you, Ms. Fanchette. Before we go to Mr. Kitt, any other elementary school teachers want to weigh in on this?
I'd like to speak on behalf of Northside. You know, I cannot give you a percentage of students that are looking to leave the profession because of behaviors. I think overall it's a systemic issue, but we talk about a community campaign for the importance of school, for attending, but also for what we get while we're in school. I'm a huge believer in shared responsibility. We welcome our parents to come and sit with our students when they are struggling. We want you to come into the building. But we've got to also build that partnership where our parents are comfortable in sending their children to us to know that we are going to give them everything we can, and that everyone's holding schools in high esteem, because we are here to, our future lies through our students who walk through our doors. So not only do we need to focus on the attendance campaign, but just in general, the importance of school and how it's important that we have to form a partnership. We cannot do this on our own. It is much bigger than what happens in the classroom. It also needs to happen at home. But parents can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. We have got to come together to do this together.
Amen. Amen. Ms. Behe, can you give me a number for Northside enrollment just at your school?
So roughly around 468.
And Mr. Smalls, I know you don't have a mic. You do have a mic. Can you just shout out a number to me?
About 342 at Hendersonville.
Thank you. Okay, any other elementary school or board member before we go to Mr. Kitt?
Mr. Irwin, elementary school principals did receive an email from the Office of Safety and Security because they had mentioned previously the reteach expectation. That was the Transportation's office as well. I did reach out to the principals, and they do have a deadline coming up with their suggestions for the reteach expectations and where we go with that. Some schools I've already been in contact with. The PDP, that we've got a working draft that when we get information from meetings such as this or transportation or one of the schools, we go back and try to see where it fits in order to update that. So I just want to let you know, Deborah, Ms. McDonald, and myself, we've already been in contact with elementary school principals. We talk to the high school and the middle school all the time. Elementary schools is less. So we reach out to them when we can and say, what do we need to fix? How is it going to look moving forward? So they do have a deadline coming up so we can begin plugging in new ideas on the draft.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. And let me just say, this is not Daryl, board member. This is Daryl, parent of 2 teenage kids. We are well over halfway through our school year, almost 3/4 of the way, I think. My opinion as a parent, we should be done reteaching expectations, right? Let's move past that and let's get to some consequences that have some teeth and some bite into them so we can try to correct some of these things. Not only is the discipline an issue from my perspective for the kid that is having the issues, but we've heard, we are discouraging our teachers from wanting to continue in their profession, and we're also making it difficult for the other kids in the classroom to actually learn and get an education when the teachers are constantly trying to deal with the ones who are the disruptions. So if we can shorten that PDP and get to some more consequences quickly, I don't even know if that made sense, but that would be, I think, a good thing to do. Mr. Kitt, the floor is yours, sir. Mr. McNeely, can we have that mic?
I think we need to share the PDP to the parents. From the district that I'm coming from, Charleston County, we share the PDP with the parents so we can get more buy-in. Raising the level of engagement in the classrooms as well, too. The higher the level of engagement in the classroom, the lower the discipline level is. I can have certain teachers in the building, no discipline issues at all. Certain kids go to other teachers, major discipline issues. So making sure that the level of engagement is raised in all of the classrooms. And just working together as a whole, just making sure that the community has that buy-in to school and just working as one unit. I think we need to be focused on teachers right now. I'm still short probably 12, 13 teachers in the building. So making sure that we're consistent when it comes to, hiring teachers, not just hiring teachers because we need teachers, looking for quality.
Yeah, amen. And Mr. Kitt, I want to go right back to where you started with the teacher engagement. Mm-hmm. I completely agree. If the teachers got the kids' attention and they're learning, then you've got less discipline issues overall, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Whenever you have a teacher, and I'm going to say struggling mm-hmm. with engagement, what is your staff doing to address that concern with that teacher in order to affect the overall discipline in the class?
Well, we created this in-house program called CCMS 101. We work with classroom management, instructional management as well, too. And we observe, Dr. K wants us to do observations 10 times per week. We don't get that number every week, but we make sure that we recheck all the time on our teachers. We give them actions to, corrective actions. We just don't say, hey, do this. No, we make sure we walk them through the step. I have a great team of APs. They work with our teachers on a daily basis. We want them to get better. But sometimes when we work, certain teachers don't fit the bill. So we need to make sure that we hire quality. And if we can't get the quality that we're looking for, we hire again. And also creating a true alternative school. Just because, kids have certain challenging issues, that doesn't mean that they're bad. They just can't fit in that big environment. The environment that we're in now, the middle school, is not designed for a middle school. So we need to move some of those students out and create a true alternative school and a true either sixth grade academy or move the sixth graders back to the elementary school so we can truly work with those seventh and eighth graders.
Mr. Kitt, there's no one else in the room right now but me and you.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
This is just between us.
Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to give me a number of teachers that you currently have that currently today, not saying that they won't get there by the end of the year, but currently today are not where we need them to be in the engagement piece? And if you're not willing to say that, you can say, I'd rather not discuss it.
I'd rather not discuss
yes, sir.
that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
We need some support.
Okay. Okay. And so, Mr. Kitt, one more question just to you. The teachers, you say we've shown them the steps, we've held their hand, we've walked through it with them, and they still can't get it. At this point, are we just doomed to ride it out with that teacher for the rest of this year, or can
Not
we
necessarily.
put someone?
I went to the professional review panel with Dr. Cave, and we did some things. So we're working on some things in house right now. We may have to, work to not get rid, but to motivate that teacher to either get better or move on.
Do we have mentors in any capacity that we can put in there with the teachers?
Yes, we do. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Kitt, before we go to Mr. Cannon, this is my last question for you. Not only, we've talked a lot about in class, but let's talk about disruptions in the hallway. Where are we at, in your opinion, as far as kids not being in class, being places where they're not supposed to be, not being supervised because they've slipped off somewhere? Where are we at with that as far as the middle school level?
We can make improvements. Like I said previously, the building is too big. I'm down a lot of manpower. I got, subs coming in and out every day. I can give you pretty much every grade level, I'm short 2 to 3 teachers. So I have, new subs coming in on a daily basis, and they don't know the routine. So we have to reteach our adults every day as well, too. So it's a big building. It's a big building. I don't like the design for middle school students at all. I'm used to smaller buildings so we can, target our kids and locate our kids on a daily basis, minute by minute, all the time. It's not designed for middle school students at all.
Perfect world, money's not an issue. Not facility-wise, but people-wise. What do you need in order to feel like you've got a handle on the middle school?
The same number
that you don't have now.
Same number of administrators, a SPICE team for each grade level, 3 teams per grade level as well too. Part-time or full-time mental health counselor, somebody not contracted out, but somebody that works for the district. We have a great social worker, Ms. Odd, so she's a great addition to our community. Other than that, pretty much a hall monitor.
How many hall monitors, Mr. Kitt?
I would say 2.
Okay.
I would say 2. Yeah.
And you feel like with that, you would be able to, in spite of the facility being what it is.
If I had my pick for teachers, yes, sir.
I got
yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right, Mr. Cannon, I'm coming to you. Mr. Kitt, I have one more question.
Okay.
CCMS 101, is that documented?
It's documented.
Is there any way that the board can get a copy of that? I would be very excited to see that.
I can get it.
I'm very excited. Thank you for the initiative.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cannon, or your team?
Please restate the question.
Classroom disruptions, where are we at as far as our teachers being done or close to done because of the disruptions we're having in our classroom, and what can we do to address that?
I don't think we have many at all who are done because of disruptions in the classroom. I think the teachers who are done are ready to move on for various reasons, but I don't think it's because of the students at this point of the school year. I do think several of our early new teachers are just becoming acclimated to the profession. And in this profession, research will show that it takes 3 years for a teacher to reach that level of confidence and to understand the dynamic needs of the profession to be an effective classroom teacher and everything that it takes to manage a classroom, to prepare lessons effectively, assessing students and learners where they are, and how do you just mix all of the stew together in order to get the best product and not go home frazzled every day. So I think that is just a natural part of the process in the profession. However, a challenge for us is the lack of continuity and the annual turnaround and turnover of teachers for us. In a district and in a school that's dependent on so many of our international faculty, and with a 3 to 5 year ability to get acclimated to the profession, as well as, even if I'm an experienced teacher coming from a different culture, getting to understand our American educational system becomes a challenge as well, with that person getting acclimated. So it takes them a solid 3 years as well to really get their mojo going in the classroom. With our international teachers, by the end of that 3 years or that 5 years of them really getting acclimated, then the programs that they're members of requires for them to leave. So that starts the cycle over again with us attempting to grow teachers. So the building is a challenge to really get settled and for those effective relationships to be established. Mr. Kitt mentioned something in our previous meeting that I want to echo, but there is a need for us to be able to support teachers to understand the importance of establishing positive relationships, meaningful and relevant relationships with students, which will help prevent the behavior problems, in addition to how to effectively instruct students and assess students and provide students with feedback. I believe for us at the high school, there's a need for us to research the bell schedule that we're on, and to consider whether or not a 90-minute 4x4 block schedule, for all intents and purposes, as to why we moved to a block schedule many years ago, if that schedule is still benefiting us and benefiting all of our students. Or should there be a hybrid of schedules in the building based upon unique learning pathways for students? But the 90 minutes in a classroom is not the best use of time for the level of engagement and instruction that we're getting right now. So that is something for us to research and to explore as a potential change.
Mr. Cannon, I was always told that the average attention span was 12 minutes. I never figured out how that 90-minute schedule was the best use of our time. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
The 90 minutes can be effective. As a classroom teacher, I taught utilizing that 90 minutes. But you must be able to plan no less than 3 different lessons to instruct students in the 90-minute. And unfortunately, I don't see the profession at current, from what I've been observing for a few years now in our community, the investment of time to be a professional educator is really spent with that level of planning and that level of instruction. This is a profession. It's not a daytime job that I just go to, and when I leave this job, then I'm off the clock. But the numbers, unfortunately, that I see of educators who leave the building, I say this, when I was a young teacher, a first year, second year teacher, I had a mentor tell me, never let people see you leave the building without a briefcase or without your bag, which you've been showing that you are working and grading papers and assessing, so you can give students feedback the following day. Unfortunately, I see where we're just swinging our arms in the afternoons when we're leaving the building, and very little feedback is being provided to students on a daily, weekly basis based upon learning that they should have acquired. The idea of homework has gone out the window in many regards, where students aren't taking anything home to study and then to come back for various reasons. But a lot of that time usage could be spent with what how to effectively instruct students inside the classroom. So there are several issues. It's not just a one facet, but I really like what Mr. Kitt said as far as how we have to build up our relationship capacity with teachers inside the classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. I would ask this of Mr. Cannon, but of course this is open to all of our principals. With the amount of learning loss that we had during COVID, and we know this is a nationwide issue, would this not also, Mr. Cannon, at least be a time to consider bringing back homework for that reinforcement to maybe try to catch back up on some of this learning loss?
No one took away homework exactly. I don't know if that's something specific to Colleton, but I haven't observed that. I believe that is still within the purview of a teacher to assign it if that's a part of their lesson. But also, we have to be mindful of if a student is leaving out of the school and they have work to do outside of school homework, and they get stuck at home, then are we putting an additional burden on the families there when parents are not available to assist because of working, because of not being, being a parent right now in this day and time is not while the kids are at school, I'm at work, and we're all home at 5 o'clock, by 5 o'clock together. For so many families, when students are coming home, parents are going to work. So I don't think there's a simple fix right now as far as the homework thing goes, but some outside expectation that students should be engaged in something that's stretching their learning is a need for us to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. And if you own a business in here tonight, I just want you to know that very quickly I am coming to have a conversation with you. I think not only does our community need to be more involved in our school district, but I think all of our businesses in our community need to be involved in our school district. I don't think our schools should have to be begging and pleading for money when we've got plenty of businesses that are doing quite well in our community. On that side of the engagement, as Ms. Simmons always says, it takes a village. All of us need to be working together. Mr. Cannon, I think our Pizza Hut has closed, but if any of our local pizza places want to bring back, you read 10 books, you get a free small pizza, I think that would be a good thing to do to bring our elementary schools back to reading. I don't know if anybody owns a pizza place.
Is that Book
Just
It?
throwing that out there.
Book It. I do want to add, because since we're on discipline topic, again, something that Mr. Kitt said as far as a true alternative school. Also, I think what we're facing is the societal norms that many of us have been raised upon are eroding. And how do I treat other people? How do I expect to be treated myself? When I'm in a grocery store now and I see a 5-year-old, or maybe let's just a 3-year-old, where do they put candy at the checkout line? Right there in the eye purview of a child. And the child wants this candy, they want that snack or whatever else. And I cringe when I see families telling the children, stop touching that sugar honey iced tea, you dumb saka. And that happens so much in this day and time that our students are being raised in an environment that's causing more stress upon them on a regular basis. And as they get older, we don't know where the stress is coming from. Some of that stress is coming from, unfortunately, that home environment in which they're being raised with something that's just so simple as, yes, they're a child, they're going to want that candy right in the store. They put it there purposefully. So how do I deal with this as a parent? And I know we have Parent University. I know we're very sensitive because I cannot tell you how to parent and things of the sort. But I think as a school environment, for us to consider, if we were, hypothetically, if we did have our intercession plan, and we were able to identify and target specific students based upon the data of discipline and behavior, then during that time of intercession where the students who have met the goal, they're performing academically where they're supposed to perform, they're not having behavior problems or whatever else, could this be a time when we have school for this population of students where we can spend time solely on teaching expectations and behaviors and putting them in an acceptable setting for learning these behaviors that are necessary for them to be successful young people as well as successful adults. We don't have more time in the school day to add something else to the plate to challenge academics, but I do think the unique or the different calendar that was being proposed some time ago, and I know we moved away from that, but I do think there's a lot of merits in having a creative schedule or a creative calendar to allow schools to implement and focus on some of these soft skills that we don't always have enough time to focus on in the regular calendar, traditional calendar style.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. And I would just throw this out there, and I don't know if this is a popular thing amongst the community as a whole, but for all of our principals, I would love for us to get to a point where there is no cussing in our schools at all. That would be an amazing thing. It's very, very disheartening when you walk into an elementary school and you hear kids using words that make adults blush. So I don't know if that's something that can come from district or if that's something from school level, but that's part of that teaching kids a responsibility. And I'm sure there are no adults who like to get cussed at by kids. So anyway, any school board members have anything on this topic as far as the disruptions in class, in the hall, or on the buses? All right, Ms. Simmons, I'm just asking for clarification since we started after 6 at like 6:15. Are we going to 8:15 or are we still stopping at 8? 8:15 sounds great. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. I heard you, Ms. Simmons. I heard you. All right, so violence, and this includes fighting in our schools and weapons. So I want to make sure we spend a good amount of time on this to discuss this. And Mr. Cannon, I did kind of cut you off as far as disruption in our hallways, but something tells me we're fixing to circle right back to that with as far as fighting and those kind of things. Or is this an issue that we're having in our elementary schools? Are there any elementary school principals that would like to touch on the fighting and the violence and stuff? Nobody elementary? All right, Mr. Kitt, I'm coming back to you, sir. I know already that you have a wonderful plan to correct this like you have on everything else.
Repeat the question.
Fighting, violence, weapons, any of those in your school?
It's a work in progress. It goes back to classroom management again, as well as, making sure that we're aware of all situations at all times. When it comes to weapons, I think we need the TSA, the bag scanners, the X-ray scanners versus the metal detectors. Because when it comes to the metal detectors, you can't detect everything, but when it comes to the bag scanners, you can detect everything. It's more the X-ray view. So I think we need those in schools. A lot of schools are getting those now. You have Spartanburg, have Jasper County. A lot of districts are using the X-ray scanners.
Now, Mr. Kitt, just for clarification, you said bag scanner, but then whenever you pointed, I think you pointed to the body.
Oh, yeah, the body as well. I'm sorry.
The person walks through that so it gets everything.
You get everything. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
And you can do the bag scanners as well, too, so it's two. You can do the X-ray scanner and the bag scanner.
Mr. Kitt, just because you're the first one to speak on this, our clear bag policy is, tell me.
It's not working because, I guess it's because of the product that we purchase. A lot of kids, their bags are ripping, and parents are buying more plastic bags as well, too, and they're ripping as well, too. So we got to make sure we purchase a better product if we're going to use the clear bags.
But so my question, I'm sorry, was not as far as if they're holding up, was are they helping us in eliminating these issues, seeing these issues ahead of time, or is it not really?
Kind of, sort of, but if the person has it on their body, we don't see it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And some of the vapes and everything else, they're plastic. So you can't catch everything.
Right.
So I think we need another detection system to catch more of those products.
And I have a policy printed out here as far as drugs and alcohol. Mr. Burt, maybe I can ask you this question. are vapes included in that verbiage? Okay, so where are we at? Somebody, Mr. Kitt, Mr. Cannon, Dr. Cave, somebody tell me, where are we at as far as or maybe Mr. McNeely, our progressive discipline plan with vapes? Is that can we move to that being a quote unquote zero tolerance policy?
We can move to that if that's what the board decides and what the board votes on. That would be the policy. The THC vapes that are purchased in local stores, if you're over the age of 21, those have a minute amount in them, and I've already spoke to law enforcement. I did last year. I spoke to them again this year. Because they sell them over the counter, if you want it tested to see if it's a higher concentration, it has to go to the SLED lab, and it takes 3 to 4 months in order to get that back. So by the time it does come back, that has already been a 4-month process before discipline comes out. The THC and any vape product now is treated as a tobacco violation. Once they accumulate enough tobacco violations, then it does go to an expulsion hearing. Unless Mr. Duffy has got new information on the content and percentages, then that's the information that I was given, and the information we've been operating on is because it is under what the law says. That's why it's still able to be sold in stores that are vape stores.
Mr. Kitt, from your vantage point, can you tell me what the discipline procedure is for vapes? First time we catch one, we smash the actual device?
We take the device, referrals to Pillars for Hope, give them ISS as well.
Do they get the device back?
No.
Thank you.
We have a bag full of vapes, so they don't get the device back. You can also eliminate certain vapes by using the vape detection system. I believe they're like $7.95 per system, and you can put them in the restrooms as well as the hallways. So when you get the detection system, you get your administrators to download the app on the cell phone, and you can detect how many vapes are in the building. Kids are using them at that time. So,
When you say $7.95,
$795 each.
$795 each. And how many bathrooms do you have in your community bathrooms?
18.
18?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we do. We just were awarded that money from the Juul lawsuit. Yeah, may be a good thing. Mr. Cannon, is your discipline procedure the same on vapes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, has this invaded our elementary schools at any level yet? No vaping issues? Okay. Mr. Kitt, back to fighting and violence in the schools. Where are we at with, what are the issues we're facing and what can we do about them?
Well, go back to, like I say, management. We need to work on that. Certain issues, we started doing peer mediation as well, too, because after we get through the fighting process, we find out that most of these kids are friends. There's just, something they need to resolve. They don't know how to talk through their problems. So we have our social work as well as our counselors doing peer mediation. And I take part in some of the peer mediations as well, too. So having kids resolve conflicts without putting up fists. And I always tell students that you always have to give someone the utmost respect. Regardless if you like the person or not, you can learn how to coexist in an environment. So teach them certain skills so they can learn how to coexist, regardless if they're friends or not.
Right. And so, Mr. Kitt, I appreciate that. Would you agree with me that part of getting them to respect others is getting them to respect themselves?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you would be on board with me as far as some of this language and stuff that is not being respectful to yourself. If we can do some of the little things, maybe they'll add up to a big thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And getting out there in the community and getting to know where these students are from. I visited all the communities in Colleton County, just making sure that the parents know that I'm not just there for the school, but I'm there for the community as well, too. Understanding where they're from, understanding their pain, their struggles, and making sure that I'm listening to some of their concerns.
Mr. Kitt, I just want to clarify, you said most of your fights afterwards, you discover they're friends. Mr. Cannon has already alluded to, he has a huge issue as far as the gangs in the community, the retaliation and stuff like that. I know that bleeds down to the middle school, and I'm sure it even bleeds down to our elementary schools.
It does.
Where are you at as far as that level of gang violence and community retribution in the middle school?
Well, I don't see it that much. I mean, you know, I hear certain issues as far as full-fledged gangs. I look at it as kids just having disputes, making sure that it doesn't spill in the community, doesn't spill back into school as well, too. We are aware of certain things, but getting to know them as students versus gang members, you know, making sure that they are being listened to as humans and giving them the advice that they truly do need to benefit not only in the school but in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Kitt. All right, Mr. Cannon, we're just going to bounce right to you. If you would pick up kind of with the same thing, the fighting and the weapons and what the issues are in stopping them and what steps we can take to maybe make things better.
We've seen a very significant decrease in fighting in the high school since the fall of the year. A lot of that is because of the removal of many students from the high school setting who just did not want to comply with the expectations of being school ready and school appropriate. The gangs of violence for us is real in Colleton County, is very significant in Colleton County. We've received some pushback early on from community members during some meetings, not believing that these are gangs and that the events are centered around gangs, and that just is not true. We've had parents in denial when we've had conversations with them, when they come to meetings where we're trying to provide intervention for them. And unfortunately, some of the same parents who were in denial a year ago or 2 years ago, unfortunately have buried children since our early warning based upon what we see in the school building. I believe because we see students in their social setting engagement, we have more of a unique lens and vantage point to see how they interact with peers and when they are seeing people who they have opposition or they're opposing that parents don't necessarily see. And of course, all parents want to believe the best within their child. They see the best within their child, and I believe in that, and they should. But also there's a reality of not knowing when they're out of my sight, what are they doing? So for us, as a result of the number of students who have been removed from the school setting, who have been associated with some of the specific named gangs in the community, we have seen a significant decrease in violence in the school. We also, I've noticed, we've seen a decrease in drama that leads to violence in the school since we have made it even more difficult for students to figure out the Wi-Fi password. And as lightly as that may sound, when students, every time we would change a password on the device and students would not have it for maybe about a day, or the majority would not have it for about 2 days, then there was a more of a calm inside the school. But once they figured out the password and they started sharing the password across the building to other students, it went from students walking like this, looking at one another going to class, back to walking in the hallways like this. And then they've set up meet me this place, meet me that place, on site is going down. I bet you won't hit her. Bam, let's throw them hands. So since we've cut out and cut down on students being able to communicate through these devices, their personal devices, we've seen a significant decrease in altercations in the school. We do spend time with mediation, peer mediations, school counselors, meeting with students and meeting individually with a student to hear their side, meeting with another group of students who they may have opposition with to hear their side, and then hopefully being able to bring students together Sometimes it works, sometimes it absolutely does not work. We've had students who just seem very calm, cool, collected. Oh, I'm good. Yes, I want to talk. I want to mediate. And as soon as they walk in the room, bam, they throwing hands. Code 10. We've had events where we as adults can meet with students individually and work with them and try to help them work with their peers to resolve their conflict. But then all of a sudden it escalates, even in the presence of adults there with the students. So I don't want it to be and seem as if we are just so quick to want to put students out of school. That is not the goal at all. But there is that concern about the size of the environment and how overwhelming it is for certain students to be able to navigate that environment with just so much going on. So certain students do need a smaller setting. So expansion of an alternative learning campus and school is something for us to consider, and that does not mean that they need to go to the alternative school because of poor behavior inside the school or fighting inside the school, but certain students will do well in a smaller environment. I've had students who have asked for to be sent to the alternative school here in the district because when they were there previously, they did so much better that they desired that environment as opposed to being in a large school environment. There was one other point that I wanted to make, but it escapes me.
I'm going to give you a chance to come back to it, okay?
Okay.
Let me ask you a question, and I know this one is going to be a sombering question, and you may not be able to give me an exact number. Can you tell me the number of students that we've had at the high school this year who we've lost, who have passed away during this school year?
Mm-hmm. This year only?
Yes, sir. Since the beginning of school.
Current students or students who would still be with us in the building if they did not drop out?
Yes, sure.
I'd be like 3 to 4. 4.
Thank you. And Mr. Cannon, are we at a zero tolerance policy for fighting in the school or no?
What's your definition of a zero tolerance policy?
Well, I'm basing that off of Dr. Cave's, you fight one time on the bus and you're off for 45 days.
No, sir.
No. How many times do we fight before we get to the point where, okay, you're gone? Or does it depend?
It does depend. I can't give you a number.
It depends on other factors involving that student. Is that where? Okay.
Yes, sir. And because we do have a viewing audience, because we're on the record, I do want it to be known that we're not talking about a schoolhouse fist fight and disagreement and our emotions became high and we are going to punch each other. You know, that's the type of fight that we're going to conference with the students. You may be removed from the school. You may be suspended. We're going to meet with your parents and conference with them. Most likely, those are the friends that the previous administrator referenced, that tomorrow we're going to be friendly again. When it gets to a point where we're asking for students to be removed from the school setting, it's an ongoing beef or conflict that has some connection that's causing other issues inside the school.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Board members, any input on this?
Thank you.
The Sharons want to speak.
Yeah, the Sharons, we're teaming up over here. I did want to mention something, and I was going to mention it earlier, and then I thought I would wait a little bit, just to kind of see how the conversation went. When I'm listening to what everyone is saying, there's a lot of focus and emphasis on student discipline, and rightly so. We have a lot of issues that need to be addressed. I do have some concerns, however, with the zero tolerance, and also with us being quick to remove students from the buses and or the school. There's a lot of research that indicates that those things can lead to student dropout, certainly increased attendance issues, which we're already dealing with. So we've been, as a cabinet, we've been working through some things
that we can do starting when they're young, elementary level. And this is in your board packet. I just added it to this. You'll get it for tomorrow, I guess you'll get them. But we want to start to cultivate some things in these students, and really leadership qualities, a sense of purpose, self-confidence, the things that we know will translate into better behavior as they move up and through the middle school and the high school. So a couple of the initiatives that we're working on, which are in the process of being implemented, one is bus safety patrols. AAA is, you've all heard of AAA. I assume you've heard of AAA, the National Transportation Organization for Highway Safety. It's been around 150 years, but AAA runs programs in school districts for over 100 years. And we used them in my former districts, and I brought them to two of my three former districts. And so you have students who demonstrate leadership qualities. They don't have to be straight A students, but they have to be in school. They have to have good behavior. They have to have a good work ethic, and they have to have class participation. Those students are nominated the upper levels of elementary, 5th grade, to serve as safety patrols on the buses, eyes and ears for the bus driver, and to model good behavior. And the little kids aspire to be patrols. So it's this cycle of cultivating leadership within our student body. And the students are rewarded and they're celebrated, and everybody wants to be a safety patrol. It's truly an honor. And it doesn't just work for students who are already doing great. Schools, teachers, principals can use it in creative ways with students in whom they're trying to change behavior. So I've used it with students who have difficulties, and I don't want to say this, don't tell your kids when you get home, but I'll make a fake job up, and I'll have them help with lobby duty. And so they would be with me in the lobby, but wearing a safety patrol belt. So they start to feel better about themselves, because as we've discussed tonight, a lot of these children don't have good self-confidence. They don't have a good self-image. So we have to help to change that. The other thing that we're working on, in addition to safety patrols, and by the way, AAA comes out, it is sponsored through AAA, and it doesn't cost the district anything except for a few dollars for some, used to be entirely free, but with the way things are changing in the country, you have to pay a small amount for some of the equipment now. The badges, I'm talking like $500 for the whole district. But the other thing that we're doing, and with the same end in mind, we're creating peer mediation at the elementary level, but structured, formalized peer mediation. We're partnering with the Mediation Center of the Coastal Empire, which is actually out of Savannah. We got quotes from 3 different vendors. This is again, it's in your board packet, but we're going to go with this group. They'll come in and they'll work with our teachers and our students. And again, we're looking at that top group of elementary students, what would either be 5th graders or 6th graders, depending on the way our configuration pans out. And then those students, we're looking at 20 from each of the 5 elementaries. So we'll have 100 peer mediators, and if we have 100 to 150 safety patrols across the 5 elementaries, that's 200 to 250 students with now really polished leadership skills heading to the middle school. And that's 55-60% of the middle school population. And then that cohort will continue in the middle school, hopefully will continue to cultivate those leadership skills. And I think that part of our approach to all of this has to be one that comes from a positive, proactive perspective, in addition to the punitive things we're doing. Because we want the kids to want to come to school, and we want them to feel happy about school. And so we have to find that balance. And I think that these initiatives are a good way to start to do that, to complement what we're doing with discipline.
Thank you, Dr. Baddock. Ms. Whitkin, did you also have something you wanted to share?
This may have been addressed earlier, but and Dr. Braddock just brought up peer mediation, but I'm looking at a number of elementary schools that are represented, and the board has received a number of emails and concerns shared, of course, with Dr. Cave about violence in the elementary setting towards teachers. So the throwing of chairs, the hands on teachers. And so I guess one thing that definitely came out of the last work session that we had was the need for the alternative setting for elementary. And I want you to know that the board heard that. But I just wanted to see if if there was a perspective from any of our elementary schools this evening with regards to violence, specifically, in students acting out. Dr. Braddock just spoke about peer mediation. I understand the benefit of that, but the amount of disrespect towards authority figure is significant. And just so you know, I mean, it's being heard throughout the community, and I just wondered if any of our elementary school administrators can speak to that.
Any of our elementary school principals want to speak to that? I know we did. I think the whole board got an email that mentioned a teacher getting hit 20 times by a kid in the elementary setting. So we know that those issues are there. I just wonder, is anybody willing to speak on those tonight?
I'll mention something. The Sharons again. We are also, I should have mentioned this, we're also working to improve our MTSS system in the district, and I think that's going to play a critical role because we need to be monitoring student behavior and especially looking for patterns in behavior. We just had this conversation at our principals meeting. I think it's some of the students about whom we may be speaking may be students who have mental health issues or who have disabilities and who need some assistance, and the worst thing we could do is throw them out of school. However, that said, an alternative setting is appropriate for some of these students, especially when we're trying to get them wrapped around with intensive services. So if there's a way for the board, I've talked to Dr. Cave about really the need for a center-based program in Colleton County. Many of you may not know what that is, but it's a program. Dr. Cave, I want to get off topic here, but we could make it work with an alternative program, but the students do need more services, intensive services, particularly those students who have mental health issues that lend themselves to behavioral aggression. And that's what we're seeing in some of these elementary schools. And we also are getting better at evaluating the students in a more timely manner, because I do know that it tends to take a little bit longer than we would like to get the kids evaluated and then get them the correct supports.
Thank you, Dr. Braddock. Just in the sake of time, we're about to move on to our last topic, but board members, I do want to open this time up to you to see if you have any input, any suggestions, any thoughts on the violence in our schools or any of the other topics that we've discussed thus far. Okay, moving on, we will tackle this hopefully in 11 minutes.
Before we move on, I would like to say, I feel that the principals in the schools are pretty much in control of the violence and got a pretty good hand on what's going on. We talk about children and they're throwing chairs and at teachers and et cetera, and I feel like I haven't heard from the principal, so it's like it's a two side to a story. I'm not saying it's not true, but I feel that more evidence would have came from the principal if those were like a continuous thing.
Okay, I am going to regret doing this. It's against my better judgment, but I'm going to do it anyway. Just by show of hands, and this goes to everybody in the audience tonight, parents, community members, and school staff members. How many people like our dress code policy? Just raise your hand. How many people think we need to be done with our dress code policy? Okay. You dozed off on me? You like it? Are there others who like it? So I see a couple. Okay. And then I'm going to ask again because I didn't see any hands. Anybody who think we need to do away with the dress code policy in here tonight? Okay, awesome, because I hear that from time to time, and usually when I hear that, it's like nobody likes this. So what we're going to discuss now for the next few minutes is two policies that we currently have in place, but I want to discuss the implementation of these policies and maybe the issues that we're having with it. The first one that I'm not going to read the uniform policy. I am going to read policy JIJC, or CJ, excuse me, the possession, use of electronic communication devices in school. I'm just going to read a part of this. It says, students will not use wireless electronic devices to capture video, audio, or photos of other people at school. The posting of these photos, audio, or video will result in disciplinary consequences. I think probably everyone in here has seen some video of a fight that occurred either at our high school or a middle school at some point. It goes on to say earbuds and or headphones shall not be worn at any other time during the instructional day unless it's in the classroom for instructional purposes. And then it says students may possess wireless electronic devices considering they are not visible or activated, i.e. turned on, and they are not visible during the school day. So let me start with elementary school student or elementary school principals. Do we have an issue with cell phones and or earbuds and stuff in our elementary schools? And if so, what can we do about them? No one? No, not that. Oh, Mr. Smalls has got me.
Oh, you go ahead. Oh, no.
For Hendersonville, it's not a big issue.
Okay.
Of course, kids have their phones. I've seen fights on phones, but I wouldn't say for us, or probably for elementary world, it's probably low on the totem pole in regards to infractions and that kind of thing and disruptions.
And all of our elementary school principals, I think, we're kind of nodding along with that. That's pretty much the case. All right, cool. Mr. Kitt, I know you have no issues at all with cell phones and earbuds.
We have a big issue with cell phones and earbuds. Part of the problems with the earbuds are the fact that the kids have the hoodies.
So, okay, so let me stop just because of the sake of time, and let me ask you a very pointed question.
Yes.
We have a policy in place that is very crystal clear, black and white. So what is the issue? Is it the implementation of the policy? Is it the consequences that come along with the policy? What is the issue that we're having even though we have this policy in place?
I believe it's the consequences because of the policy. Because you can tell some kids 5 times a day to take your hoodie off. And when they do, it's because you can see the earbuds in their ear. But we do have a big problem with cell phones. Some of our students have already been suspended to 3 days for having their 3rd cell phone. And so now we're at where we have some kids who have number 4 and 5 cell phone violations.
So please forgive me if I'm wrong. Somebody correct me. I just browsed this policy, but I'm pretty sure it says that if we see your cell phone during the day, it gets confiscated. You don't get it back till the end of the day. So I'm just asking.
Well, the parent has to come and sign for it.
Okay, so, but I think you said sometimes you ask a kid 5 times, but that was in reference to the hoodie?
Yes.
Okay, so first time we see a cell phone, we're taking it, and the parent has to come at the end of the day to get it?
And whenever they come to get it, they have to sign for it, yes.
Okay.
And then they know that that's their first time. And we inform them. Then the second time, the parent has to come, they get ISS. The third time, the parent has to come. They're not supposed to have an electronic for the rest of the year, and they get suspended for 3 days.
Are those consequences being effective?
No.
Okay. Even the third one? Okay. Mr. Cannon, can you or one of your, Ms. Wicken?
I'm sorry, with regards to cell phones, how are they using data? Or how are they getting any reception? Are they just using it for music?
Well, I think Mr. Cannon said earlier they're finding ways to get the Wi-Fi passcodes. I think.
You do think so? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, to Mr. Cannon was just saying that they're.
A lot of our kids have better phones than me.
Yeah.
So they
no
probably
doubt.
have a plan.
No doubt. Okay. Thank you.
With regards to the hoodies, Ms. Strobel and I had the opportunity to go into the high school recently and walk along with Cougar Nation. And one of the biggest problems I saw was the hoodies and the head coverings. And, it's almost like, herding cats. The administration was here to here to here. And it literally take that hoodie off and it was bam, bam, immediate. There are listed consequences for the hoodies. I would personally, my opinion, if it's got a hood on it, it doesn't need to be in the school. And I know that the parents are not going to like that. They're going to fight it tooth and nail. That's the only jacket we can afford. That's the only jacket we own. Then zip tie the hood shut, because that is the biggest problem I saw in the 2.5 hours that I was at the high school. It was constant. These children, and the lack of respect, obviously, because they either took it off and put it immediately back on within 2 steps, or they just looked at them and didn't acknowledge their existence, which is unacceptable for me. It was hard for me to stand there and watch. So I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed immediately.
And I think I see all of our middle school table shaking in agreement with that. Is that correct? Okay, Mr. Cannon, I'm fixing to get cut off by Ms. Simmons in like 2.5 minutes. Can you very quickly tell me or tell us what issues we're having in implementing the policy for dress code and electronic devices, and how can this board help in making some of those issues less of a disruption?
Electronic devices, that is a challenge for us. It's an ongoing challenge for us, and unfortunately, I feel that students win when it comes to just being overwhelmed by the cell phone, because it's not going to be for us, unfortunately, turn it over to us. It's going to be, you're not getting my phone, and it becomes a tug-of-war battle with the students. So for us, getting to a point of having that Wi-Fi where they're not able to utilize it in the means that they were with texting and the like, that has helped us significantly, but it does become a problem when there is an altercation and someone's ready to record it, and once they leave out the building and they get a signal, then they post it. Which becomes a challenge for us. So I do believe that we need some discussion and come to an understanding of this policy, the implementation of the policy, and what happens when students do not comply with the device. When a student gets to that point of being just so defiant and no, you're not getting my phone, and then you ask for them, well, if you're not going to give me your phone, then we have to move to a higher level consequence of you contacting the parent to come pick you up because you've cussed me and you're not obeying or whatever, then we cannot touch them. We cannot touch a student and force a student to go to a particular room or location. Law enforcement will not touch a non-compliant student and direct them to go to the principal's office to sit there and to wait for or contact the parent. They won't transport them unless they're being violent and causing a harm or danger to somebody else. They are there, and they are just going to challenge us and just it's not a good situation.
Mr. Cannon, can I interrupt you just for a second and ask you, in that situation that you just described, we've asked little Johnny for his cell phone. He refuses. We asked little Johnny, hey, now we got to call your parent. Please come to my office and wait. He refuses. At what point do we get to, and I know Dr. Baddock does not like this term, at what point do we cross the line and say, okay, now you've crossed the line, so now there are severe consequences beyond us just confiscating your phone and a parent coming to get it?
We get there in that moment, in that situation of going back and forth.
And then what are the consequences at that point?
It can lead to out-of-school suspension for non-compliance, refusal to obey, parent conference, and explain to them why and what happened. That could be a 3 to 5 day out-of-school suspension possibly, or if I'm not looking directly at the PDP, but the student will eventually return to school setting and most likely continue to violate this infraction because they will return again to school with a phone. So that is a challenge.
And then whenever that same student does that again, do the severe consequences come quicker, and are they more significant?
Respectfully, I hate to put it like this, but after going through that ordeal with that particular student, and you have that one, you have 5 others just like it, the level of stress that's placed on the employee to go through that, that becomes the reason why you see more students walking around with their phones, and us trying to re-educate them on just putting it away. Don't make it where you're doing something inappropriate with the phone. But for us, that is a huge issue with following the policy of no phones, no devices. When this policy was implemented earlier, I think this one was revised last year as a result of many things, and we were hitting the students hard with it or whatever. The volume of pushback that we got at the high school level from parents caused us to have a little shift in it. I have to compliment students. The majority did comply with keeping it out of sight for a period of time. But at this point, you do see cell phones. But for us, not having them connect to the Wi-Fi and texting each other and letting this cause the drama inside the school, when I tell you it is a significant difference of decrease in our building. It is a significant positive decrease where a lot of the issues and violence and altercations are not centered around the phones. Again, if there's a fight in the hallway, just the nature of the culture right now in our society is to capture it and to post it. So
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Any other board members, before we wrap this up, have any input on uniform policy or the electronics policy that we currently have in place that we're just having some issues enforcing?
I did not speak to uniform. I apologize. Well, we don't have a uniform. We have a dress code. And the dress code is an ongoing battle with the style of clothing and what's popular for students in their self-expression today. The style is short jackets or very short skirts with high waist pants, but it's still for the purpose of showing the midriff. The style is belly piercing, and students want to show off their pierced belly buttons. The style is leggings. Now that we had our hard reset with dress code, we're not seeing as much of the leggings any longer. But then I bring into question about sweatpants, and students not being allowed to wear sweatpants, students not being allowed to wear sweat gear shorts. But for this generation, that is just a natural part of the style that they do wear. And policing every other student who is in violation of the dress code in some kind of way, because for us, and I'll be quite honest, the dress code does say that if you wear a t-shirt, it is supposed to be a Colleton County School District or school-sponsored t-shirt. If you have on a plaid button-down shirt with a collar, that still isn't dress code. The collared shirt is supposed to be a plain colored collared shirt. Wearing jeans with no rips in it, when the style of the day is just rips. So we do have students who are wearing ripped jeans to school, but now they're putting on leggings or some type of under that you're not seeing their knees out and the huge holes that was just showing so much other flesh underneath, and that's just the style of the day. So I do think the district, we should consider whether or not we want to have a dress code or do we want to have a uniform. And when I joined the district 5 years ago, the district had just been engaged in contentious back and forth with community and relationships that caused a shift from uniform. I believe the uniform was khaki bottoms and a polo shirt with the collar that had to be specific to the color, to the point where families were able to pass it down from one child to the next child to the next child. That's a uniform. That's more consistent. That's more realistic to be able to enforce. than having a dress code that we currently have. So I do think it's worth revisiting that topic beyond just faculty and staff of the district, but also community engagement and what's our ultimate goal when it comes to student dress and approach.
Mr. Cannon, just strictly your opinion as principal of the high school, in which of those directions should we go? Dress code policy or a uniform? Or would you rather not answer?
It's not that I don't want to answer. I teeter and totter on that. I attended a school, I was principal of a school that had a very strict dress code. Khaki bottoms, specific color belt, and a shirt, polo shirt that had to have the school logo ironed on it, to the point that we sold the patches or the seal that could be ironed on the shirt so it's in compliance with the school. But I also realized that in some of our communities, particularly in this district, it was more of the African-American schools and more of our at-risk schools that were enforcing this dress code policy. But then when you went to the more affluent schools with a more diverse population, those students were able to come to school in their expressive clothing. So I don't have a ready answer to that question even today. And even visiting other schools, high schools, and seeing the diversity of students and what they're able to dress and come to school in, I just think we spend so much time centered around dress. And once you spend so much time on the dress, then that takes away from our energies to effectively focus on academics and education. So I respectfully will not say which is my opinion, but I will offer the desire to join a team and a think tank to explore possibilities for us.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon, and let me offer my apology for putting you on the spot with that question. Ms. Simmons, I just want to ask one more question very quickly. The young lady who spoke tonight about being a part of Cougar Nation, are you still here? Ma'am, could you stand up for me just real quick? Can you just tell me just very simply, as part of your role as Cougar Nation, are you guys instructed to have anything to do with the cell phone policy or the dress code policy?
She needs the mic.
Mr. Kidd, can we get her that mic? Thank you.
We're actually there to assist with, like I said earlier, helping them to move along to get to class on time, patrolling the halls to make sure the children are in class and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Every now and then we may say, hey, sweetie, how you doing today? Can you put the phone up? Or if you tell them to take a hoodie off, they don't hear you because they have their earplugs in. So we kind of choose our battles.
Sure. And so that's kind of my question. Whenever you do choose to engage,
yes,
what kind of response are you getting back? Are you getting back, or is it mixed?
It's mixed.
Okay.
Because you get the profanity, and then you get some children are so respectful. They'll pull the hoodie off, and they'll let us stay off. But like the gentleman said earlier, you get those, you walk past, sweetie, pull your hoodie off. They'll look at you, put it back on, or they'll look at you with their earbuds in their ears and keep
And just
walking.
keep going. Thank you very much. I just wanted that input from someone who is volunteering in our schools. Thank you. Ms. Simmons, I yield back over to you.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for their input. We are now ready to go into executive session. So I would like to have a motion to go in executive session. Upon returning, the board may or may not take action. Can I get a motion for 4.01, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we enter to executive session for discussion of item 4.01, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release of an employee related to the superintendent, and discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements related to the superintendent's contract, SC Code Section 30-4-70A12.
Now that I have a motion, can I get a second, please?
Second.
If there is no discussion, all the board that is in favor of going into executive session, please signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. We are now in executive session. Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to come out of executive session, please.
I'll make a motion, we come out of executive session.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any questions? All in favor of coming out of executive session, please signify by raising your right hand. I would like to make a motion that we adjourn. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, please signify by raising your right hand. Good night, everyone.